Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. My name is Mark Richter. I'm from the Vienna-based planning firm con.sens Mobility Design. And today I'm going to tell you about a program we have in the Austrian state of Lower Austria, a funding program that's for now really one of a kind in Austria, and even for us it's really something new and exciting. Okay. So, I guess more or less everybody will know where Lower Austria is. It's the northernmost state of Austria with the capital, the Austrian capital Vienna lying in the middle of it. Lower Austria has about 1.7 million inhabitants. It has more rural areas, but also more urban areas. The capital of St. Pölten has 56,000 inhabitants, and for now, or a few years ago, the model share of cycling was 8%, and the aim is to double it. So, the project, the cycling network for Lower Austria, or how we call it in German, it's the Radbasisnetz, so cycling base level network, and it's a state-organized and centralized approach on planning cycling networks, and also planning and constructing these cycling networks on the map. No, okay, there's a point that does not work. On this map, you can see the blue and the, what is it? Let's say it's green areas. These smaller green areas are the high potential areas, where at the beginning of the project, these were defined as those areas with a high potential to increase cycling. And also you can see those yellow lines, those are corridors for cycling highways. So it's even a level above, and everything that's in the blue area, it's the rural areas. It's also possible to attain funding there. But so let's see how is everything built, because of course a project of this size has multiple layers. At the beginning of the project, the state administration made a centralized approach on planning these networks. So it was the phase one, it was the network planning phase, and there were in all it were 5 firms, traffic planning firms, who took part in this phase, and their task was to, for each of these regions, to plan the cycling networks in different layers. We had the cycling highways, but we also had routes with high priority, lower priority, and so. And one of the most important things were that these routes really go over the municipal boundaries, because one of the main problems of cycling quite often is that good routes end at the border of a municipality, and to overcome this issue, it really was the goal of the project to plan these networks on a regional scale. This planning stage, this network planning stage, was entirely paid by the state administration, and the municipalities didn't. I mean, of course, they took part in the definition of the network, but they didn't really have to care about where does the money come from, or where does the knowledge come from. The next step, and that's where we are in right now, more or less, is the detailed planning and construction phase. We have in almost all of these regions the networks are done, and now it's the phase where the projects, the detailed projects are planned. Also, the planning of the preliminary projects is also entirely paid by the state administration, and for the construction there are different funding rates. It's 60 to 70% for the normal routes and 80% for the cycling highways. But until today there still is none of the cycling highways built, but there are because the planning is more complex, but it goes on. And one more thing that was really important for the municipalities who in the end have to collect these funds is that the state administration combined all the available funds together, because in Austria right now we also have a federal funding for cycling infrastructure, and in case of Lower Austria there's also statewide funding, and for the municipalities it would be quite a challenge to collect all these funds because there are guidelines and so on, but the state, in case of Lower Austria, the state takes this task, does it all for the municipalities, so everything they have to do is build cycling infrastructure and collect the money for it. Yeah, and as I already said, not only in the lighter, in the green, white, whatever areas there is funding, but also there is this B-level funding for the blue areas. The difference is that these blue areas didn't have their network planning done centralized. They had to make the concepts on their own, but these concepts and also the construction also can be funded on state level. This was more or less how this funding scheme is built. But right now, as I said, the network planning is almost completely done. And what we already can see is that the stuff related to cycling traffic, to cycle route planning increased on a state level. So that now there's really more knowledge, there is more workforce for cycling in the state of Lower Austria. And there are really some new structures to help bring it on the road. And that's really important because in the meantime there are lots and lots of preliminary projects underway. Also at the firm where I work, we really have to do a lot, and the state really has to do a lot of work to really get along with what's going on right now. And also some of the projects are already planned out in detail and are under construction, and a few of the projects even are finalized already. And it really are a few, but I managed to collect some pictures I can show you from this project now. And also, what's really important about this, you really have the different layers of the cycling networks that can be improved. For example, we have this picture here in Mödling. It's a town south of Vienna, and this is this is a local connection between two parts of this little town. But it's really projects like this were made possible because of the funding and the planning. We have another picture. This is at the time of the photo shoot. It wasn't completely done, but now it is done. It's at the state road B3 in Langenzersdorf, north of Vienna. It's more or less the historic road from Vienna to Prague. And I don't know, back in the 80s or what, it really was this huge 4-lane, not really highway, but kind of. And through the funding that came up now, there really was the chance to redistribute this entirely car-centric road space and make it available also to pedestrians and cyclists. So this road now is really usable for all modes of transportation. And another picture is from Helenenthal. It's a valley south of Vienna, heading towards Baden, which is a middle-sized town, but a major transit hub for people going to Vienna, and the project there really made it possible to use the bike also on a regional level. The inhabitants of the valley now really have the chance, they can cycle those few kilometers to the town, which prior to building this cycle track was just a very dangerous thing, and probably nobody would have done it, but now it's kind of easy to do it. From our point of view now, from point of view from the firm, what are our conclusions? Well, as I said, we are one of 5 transport consultancies that are in this project, but our firm also does the coordination of all the activities regarding the project, because of course at the project this size you may need a lot of coordination after all. And what we really have seen is that there on the local level there is actually a lot of ambition and will to implement new cycling infrastructure, but often the bigger question is the how. Because sometimes, quite often on a region, on a local level, there's not the kind of professional knowledge you might need to really encourage cycling. And also, of course, that's the situation for Austria. The municipalities often don't have the financial means to do it really on their own, but the ambition might be there, so this can be unleashed when this systematic provision of planning knowledge and finances are here, then you really can combine all these ingredients and build out a project like this. And all you can say that funding is a big boost, and funding also unleashes interest in cycling, because what we've seen, it really depends on the funding rate. And as we've seen earlier, the rates are 60 to 70 to 80%, and that's really important, because the experience is that only at this level you really can boost this, you can increase the interest in cycling, because below it, okay, you might get some bike projects done that were in the pipeline anyway, but it might not be just that big hit. But with these funding rates, you really can improve the whole process and therefore make something that might just not have been on this scale here before. Okay, so I guess this already was my last slide. If you have any further questions, I guess we have some time to do it now, or you can talk to me later or contact me via any of these possibilities. Thank you.
Čiže môžete využiť, alebo potom ma kontaktovať. Môžete ktorúkoľvek z možnosti využiť. Mikrofón, ja nepočujem. Takže neviem to preložiť. I am not able to translate because the lady should speak to the microphone. I can't hear her. Kto poskytuje tieto poznatky v oblasti plánovania? Je to vaša organizácia? Alebo
thanks for the question. Yeah,
za otázku. Áno.
As I said, the process is really, it has multiple layers. So the main actor in providing the knowledge is the state itself, because the state picked up this project and constructed this project at all, and to, of course, to manage the high demand of knowledge, the state had to get additional resources. So the state took in transport planning firms like ours and also 4 others, but yeah, so that's it basically, because really in smaller communities you often just don't have the chance to get the knowledge, and yeah, so that's basically it.
Takže vlastne takto to funguje.
Okay.
Maybe I will have another question, but first, thank you very much.
Dobre, možno, že budem mať ďalšiu otázku. Ďakujem. Takže možno tu bude prvý obrázok na regionálnej úrovni na Slovensku a na jednotlivých úrovniach sa to používa. Môžem mať takú otázku, čo sa týka politického aspektu tohto financovania. Dávate viac finančných prostriedkov niektorým obciam alebo menej iným, alebo nebolo to ľahké zostaviť to takto, alebo boli ste tlačení z tých, povedzme, rôznych municipalít, ktoré neboli z takýchto regionov, z takých vysokých potenciálov.
Well, course, it's difficult to answer because no one really knows what happened behind closed curtains. But I guess this first stage of the process really really happened on a professional level. So that the state really wanted to see, okay, where do we have the most potential? How can we achieve the goal of increasing the modal share of cycling? So I guess the political dimension of it wasn't the main priority. But I would say, as the municipalities that are in this B-level funding areas, they more or less have the same chances of attaining funds. They just have to put in a bit more administration.
Okay, niekto nejaké ďalšie otázky ešte?
Any other questions? Ďakujem za prezentáciu. Mám jednoduchú otázku. Kto je vlastníkom pozemkov popri cestách? Lebo na Slovensku nielen peniaze sú problémom. Problém je, že tieto pozemky vlastnia milióny ľudí, rôznych jednotlivých malých vlastníkov pozemkov. Ako je to v Rakúsku s vlastníckými vzťahmi?
Mostly when you're in the rural areas, the land beside the roads is owned by farmers, more or less when there are fields. But I guess there is quite a good number of projects in Lower Austria where it was really possible to narrow the road a little bit down to make free some space, because there is, I guess it's generally an Austrian thing. Back in, 60s, 70s, 80s, a lot of roads in the countryside were built with widths that you don't really need. So now it really was, for in some cases, the chance to narrow them down. But also, of course, there's a lot to do in getting the land to build cycleways on, but that's really really in the late stage of the project, when there is the detailed planning and to see, okay, how much space do you need that the state doesn't own yet. So of course that's a challenge for sure, and it for sure will not always work. So sometimes you have to deal with the space you have.
Niekedy máte obmedzený priestor, musíte vychádzať z priestoru, ktorý máte.